Thank you so much, Ms. Sanchez, for the
Okay, we'll go
reminder.
ahead and get started. As a reminder, we are doing our work sessions through Zoom and they're being recorded. And then if time allows, we do want to try to allow any public questions. But this might be a quick one and we'll see if we can get that fit in. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Deacon.
Thank you. So you guys who are around in 2019 probably remember the downtown plan. Very exciting. We had a lot of really good feedback. And one of the really high level sort of, I guess, light bulb moments I think we had as a community is that we have a really easy way to connect our downtown to really our best asset, which is Cole Park, and then which is our second best asset, the river. And so with that kind of came the idea of the Hunt Avenue Cultural Trail. So Hunt Avenue already has some historic resources. We've got the Porter Realty, which was the first hospital. We have the museum, and it's just a perfect link to get folks from downtown to the park and back. And so in 2022, and so in front of you guys, this is just a sneak peek. On Friday, we're doing kind of our public engagement. We'll have a booth on First Fridays where people can do some exercises with this packet. And then myself and another person are going to be actually on Hunt Avenue. We've got chalk, and we're actually going to kind of draw it out so people can kind of get a feel for what it's going to be like. But this is kind of the first sneak peek. Really quick, I do kind of want to show you the second page. And it's actually, this is totally a happenstance, but you can actually look on the top right where Cole Park is, see all the cars? Then you look at City Hall, all the, so many people are parked. And then down where the old Pink Elephant site is off of State and 6th, this was during early iron one year. And so you can really see kind of the impact of how Cole Park just gets crowded with people, downtown gets crowded with people, and you can actually see how this perfectly intersects. So very, very fortuitous sort of thing. Anyways, with all the COVID relief money, CDOT released a Revitalized Main Street grant, and we were successful in obtaining this grant. It was a 0% match, which was pretty awesome. And when we submitted the grant to implement this cultural trail on Hunt Avenue, we went through our typical process where, okay, this is how much it costs to build a street, got this, that. All right, so we submit a budget of $1.2 million. And that's what we were awarded. However, we didn't know at the time that with CDOT money came some extra requirements. And so bear with me as I read the different sort of clearances that this project was, that it triggered. Environmental clearances such as NEPA, which is the National Environmental Policy Act, hazardous waste and hazardous materials clearance, threatened, endangered, and sensitive species report, both on the state and the federal level. Cultural resources, which include archaeological, historical, and paleontological resources. So in case there's a buried dinosaur on Hunt Avenue. A state stormwater permit, CDOT drainage and hydraulic clearance, right-of-way clearance, utility clearances for all the different utilities, and survey clearance. So it doesn't take, a rocket scientist to see that, oh, this is probably going to be more expensive than we anticipated.
And I just want to jump in. The reason some of this was surprising is because it's not a CDOT street. So when you're doing a CDOT street highway, you would anticipate more hurdles, considering this is a city-owned street is made, what some of this made surprising. So Deacon, sorry, I'll go back to you.
That environmental part, you can have the auto reach out to this district, they might get that.
Awesome. Thanks. And, I think that's such a great point too is, yeah, when you look at this, it's like, okay, it's an already built environment. So really there's probably no species that are going to be impacted. And again, there's probably no buried dinosaurs. I'd like to see it if it was there, but it probably isn't. So anyways, to make a very long story short, essentially, we're looking at a cost for this full scope of work from 6th Street to the northern end of 3rd Street is about $3 million. So, about $1 million per block. The engineering and design costs for this were just south of $200,000. So we've got about $1 million to build a street. So now we're kind of faced with this dilemma. Originally, I think, it would have been nice to rebuild at least the street portion, and then we could kind of work on activating some of the spaces. But just because of the way that this project is staggered and the way that it's all kind of laid out, really, we effectively have to choose a block to do. The good news is the design will cover the entire project scope. So that will be done. And frankly, once we don't have some of the strict CDOT requirements that are attached to some of this funding, I think our construction price would go quite a bit down because we don't have to have a person on site every day who's ensuring stormwater permit compliance. So those are some of the things that just get built into these costs that really, really do escalate this sort of thing. And so really what we're looking for is some guidance on which block to choose. We certainly have a suggestion when we take the 50,000-foot view, when we look at the condition of the pavement, as far as where we think we could at least have the most impact visually to try to entice people. We certainly would recommend Main Street, between Main Street and 4th Street, as far as the project scope to be completed with the grant funds that we have. But, I do also want to acknowledge that it's a little bit of an unfulfilled promise. We wanted to get this whole project done, and it's just the costs are so much more than we anticipated.
And I want to share, I hope by now from a staff perspective, when we're presented with a problem, we try to come at it from every different direction. And so my first inclination, and Harry loves it when I do this, was how much is the undergrounding? How much is water, sewer? Are there ways we can maybe offset some of the costs? And that way there's just not enough there. So we would have to be hitting our general fund, and it's not like we're off 100,000, so the magnitude of how we're off. And so we really did try to come at this every which way. And then, so for tonight, it is to get some direction on which block, and Deacon did great on explaining why when we say most visibility, it means people that are on Main Street are likely to see it, and then you can still see it from Cole Park potentially as well. So we're talking visibility from both sides. But the other part is we just really needed to share with you that the disappointing news that we're not getting the full scope, and it's going to have to be a little bit smaller, and make sure you had an opportunity to ask questions on that as well. Was there anything else, Deacon or Harry? So Mayor, we'll turn it over to questions.
Okay, we'll open it up for questions. I recognize those who have your mic lights on. Counselor Vio, Yan.
Thank you. A quick
welcome.
question. I'm sure you said this in your presentation, but just so for some clarification, you're asking us to give you guidance on one of the blocks, and yet over time, over the near future, we're going to put money aside to get the whole thing done at some point?
So it's to try to, the goal would be is to finish it. And as Deacon said, the design is for the entire stretch. So that portion will be done. How we want to put money aside for it will be the thing we'll have to talk about in the future.
And I will just mention that the design that we have is a really great candidate for a MMOF grant through CDOT, which is a multimodal opportunity fund or option fund, one of the two. It's also potentially a candidate for a Safe Routes to Schools grant, although I think we could identify better places for that. The good news is we would have a CDOT approved design in hand, which I think makes us much more eligible for some other CDOT grants. That's, more of a discussion down the road though, and I don't want to get any hopes up. But, that is one good news from all of this is we have a CDOT approved design that's pretty awesome for getting more CDOT money.
And just from a transparency perspective, because we're always very careful about an accountability as it relates to the street trust fund. This obviously is not one of the streets that was identified. So no funds from the street trust fund, from the current street trust fund, would be going towards this project. So just from a transparency, we always want to make sure that's clear.
Counselor Carson. Then Counselor Hensley.
Just from an optics standpoint, I think the multimodal is good. I kind of just thought about the safe route to school. That'd be a hard sell there. And so, yeah, I think you're right on that one. That one we'd catch a little flack for that. But the multimodal's good, and right now leveraging that's huge because they want that. So anything you could get there. So, yeah, thank you. Good, it's a good presentation too. Thanks.
Thank you, Counselor Carson and Counselor Hensley, then Counselor Krebs.
So when you say we can do one block, is it everything? Okay, so everything, even the benches or whatever, I mean, okay. So,
We'll have one perfectly built, fully to the full design block
Okay.
that can help cast the vision for it as well.
And, this was somewhat of an earlier discussion we had was, given the choice, unfortunately, our design just got too far to really get to this sort of, fork in the road. But, given the choice between doing one, essentially rebuilding a road or actually building a place, I think is maybe a good way to say it. I think it's from what we've tried to accomplish in implementing the downtown plan. This builds a place, not a street. And I think that's an important concept.
Counselor Carson,
Um,
I mean.
No,
Counselor
Right.
Krebs. Okay.
Oh, you guys good? So I know you touched on it earlier about which you'd like to be able to see the first block that we picked from Cole Park, and I get that. But have you guys identified from on this stretch, and I'm trying to picture it, but I kind of have an idea of what I'm asking, but what is the most decrepit block? Which is
That's the same block.
the same, so
Yeah,
the
so
one that's the most beat up
actually,
is,
it paired really well. So if you are driving on Hunt going north and right when you cross Main Street, and so you're next to you're between Porter Realty and the hotel, like that street is failing. It's the worst section of Hunt, which is also the section we're recommending because you can also obviously see it from Main and you can kind of see it from Cole Park type of thing.
so do we get we get to Fourth Street, not all the way to Main, but we get to Fourth Street with that one, with the first block?
Yeah, between Fourth and Main.
And what is from a numbers standpoint, we have enough to do a whole complete block and that's it? What would be the percentage of another one? Just curious.
There
done.
isn't. So because the design and it's a 1.2 roughly $1 million grant. The design is around 200 and each block's about $1 million.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, gotcha.
Okay.
Thank you.
Counselor Dominguez.
Is this just happens to be the actual rendering of that block because of that little 45 there from the hotel? That's what it would look like?
And Deacon went fast, but these are, like you said, we're gonna show them Friday night for public input. And so based on it, public input, which can include council input, we will pass that along to the design and engineering firm.
And I was going to talk about this a little bit later in the quarterly update, but really our strategy on Friday with this is we're meeting with each of the property owners on each block sort of as a group during the day before kind of the general public sort of engagement, mostly to really have a chance to talk to them one-on-one, but also kind of as a group because, as some people talk, oh yeah, that's a great point. It can spark some better conversations and it's less siloed. So that's going to be happening during the day, Friday. There are some really cool things about this design. I can nerd out about it if you want. My personal favorite, and this maybe is the best idea I've ever had, is next to the San Luis Valley Museum doing a culturally significant garden. So in the San Luis Valley especially, there are lots of native plants that are incredibly important culturally, historically to Hispanic culture and Native American culture. And so, really that's kind of a really nice place to put it right next to San Luis Valley Museum. So I'm pretty excited about that one.
Mayor, just seeing if there's more questions or if we're ready to open it up for any public questions.
Yeah, there are gonna be a few more questions, Ms. Sanchez. We'll go with Counselor Carson and then Counselor Hensley.
Deacon, are you going to have, and if you're not, you have to have OSHA in the garden?
If we can get it to grow there,
You know what it
that,
is, right?
yes, sir. Yeah,
Wild bear root?
yeah,
Okay.
totally. Not to
Yeah,
be
that'll-
confused
that'll
with,
be-
hemlock.
Yeah, but the Washaw is important from a medicinal and all that. So thank you. That's pretty awesome. That's terrible.
Counselor Hensley?
Go ahead.
So, on your, input for Friday, is the input for which block it is, or is the input for which concept?
The discussion on Friday is really to get direction from the public. Do you like this type of planter or that type of planter? Do you like this type of bench? Do you like that kind of look? So it's not specifically, they're not really deciding which block. We wanted that to
Okay.
be in your
So-
guys' hands.
So when you're talking to them, are you showing it by like concept, or are you saying pick out, are they gonna mix and match?
Yeah, so if you look at the back 2 pages,
Mhm.
these are really just kind of some of the design choices that we'll walk through with the public. You know, just to kind of point one out, one of my favorite things is on the bottom left, on the 3rd page, the paving design. You know, if we're trying to tie downtown to Cole Park, well, what are 2 important assets? We've got the river. So, you know, do you prefer kind of a river theme connecting the sidewalk and leading you to Cole Park? Or do you like the railroad theme, which is kind of taking your sidewalks, traditional sidewalks, and making them kind of look industrial railroad track-like? So those are kind of the temperature checks that we're getting the feedback on.
So I guess my question would be on this, is there price differences? Because maybe that's, okay, so no major price difference. And then what about upkeep, like on the, so one thing I have concern with the colored crosswalk, and maybe it's not a big concern, but I know Adams State, we have those crosswalks and they're super faded. So it's, if we do something like these then will we put it in our plan to make sure to upkeep it and things like that?
So yes and yes. I think one of the things is red is a particularly difficult color to maintain over time. That seems to just turn to pink very quickly. Also with much of this would be more on the pedestrian side, so it doesn't get that same kind of abrasion that you would expect. We definitely, so for example, under the paving design elements, it shows pavers. That's not something we would ever use because those are a nightmare, because they just pop up in our climate with the freeze thaw. So we can have that sort of design sort of aesthetic, but yeah, definitely, there is going to be additional maintenance with this sort of design. There's no question about
And I
it.
guess that was just my thought, is like, is there one bench that's structurally better than another bench? You know, like in a sense, I definitely wanted to go to everybody putting their input, but at the same time, if one is substantially better, I don't, that's just my input. Thank
Certainly.
you.
So I have a question, Deacon. Is it safe to say that this is gonna be in phases, like just one phase, or is this the final phase? But this would be phase 1 of maybe 3 different phases, so it's not the end, right? If we
Correct.
get other funding opportunities.
Correct. And, you know, one of my ardent hopes is that, I mean, this is a pretty cool design. It's a cool project. And I think when people see it, you know, I think there's going to be a lot of momentum behind it. And I think optimistically, I think there will be a big enough push to really get us to the finish line for the entire thing. Again, I'm really optimistic about the MMOF funds. But, you know, I think it's definitely something that we'll be proud of, but it is going to happen in phases.
Okay. I did talk to one of the business owners who was actually excited about the meeting that you're gonna have on Friday and was really looking forward to it. So sounds like you have them interested, and that's great.
Excellent. I do want to give a quick shout out to Andy Rutz, who's a sub-consultant on this. He prepared this material. He was actually on our downtown design plan when we had MIG doing that. So he's done his own thing, but he was actually on all of the applicants when we put out our proposal for designs. He was a sub-consultant on everybody's project because he really believes in this project and he wants to continue to work in Alamosa. So it's really a testament to kind of the long-term vision of this.
Okay. Well, good. I don't see any other lights on, so I want to give council the opportunity to ask all their questions before we turn it over to the public. Looks like we're okay now. We'll first turn it over to the audience and then Zoom. No comments? Okay. All right, good. Okay, thank you. So we'll go ahead and go to Zoom. looks like we have, one participant on Zoom. We can explain to them how to raise their hand.
It's either *6 or *9. One of them mutes you. Okay, *9 if you would like to speak, or raise your hand function on the bottom of the screen. I do not see a hand raised, Mayor.
Okay. All right, so I don't see any hands raised either, Ms. Sanchez, so we'll go ahead and turn it back over to staff to see if you have any additional comments you'd like to make at this time before we end the work session.
Just, I'd like to hear your recommendations on which block.
So, okay, so they want to hear our recommendations. I thought you decided on the block.
Well, we made our recommendation. I
Okay.
don't know if we know you guys are in agreement.
Okay,
or
all right,
not.
let's do it this way. The easiest way is to start at the end and just go all the way down. We'll start off with Carson, Councilor Carson, and take it all the way down to the end. If you can just-
My natural, or, you know, I think the logical thing to do is work on the one that's the most decrepit. And if it works that it's the one that's aesthetically the one you guys want, then it's like a no-brainer for me.
Okay. So Carson is saying what you all have selected, Vihil saying what you also selected, Prep saying what you, so unanimous. Wow.
Thank you.
Good deal. Thank you all. Thank you for the time and energy you put into this.
And I know you folks should be done with your activities at the Windsor on Friday with time enough to spare to come visit us. Beata's going to have her booth on the east end of San Juan on the north side of the block, kind of towards the end. And we are going to entice folks to walk the extra block to come and actually walk the street with us, and we'll draw it out. It'll be fun.
I think, yeah, there's gonna be spray paint and everything.
I mean,
so-
who hasn't? You can drive there too. That's fine.
What time is that walk?
So we're going to be stationed there the entire First Friday's event. So from 5 to 8, we'll be there the entire
Okay.
time.
Okay, so the walk with the business owners, is that?
That's going to be during the day. So we've got a handful of different appointments. We're going to talk to the depot, the folks in the depot first from like 9:30 to 10:30. And then we've kind of got a little bit of a staggered schedule for each block after that.
Okay,
Cool.
all right.
Thank
good
you.
Deal. All right, well, great job, Steph. Great job, and looking forward to seeing that this Friday.